Hello, this is Scott. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where we talk about data science analytics topics as well as platforms. Today we're going to be talking about social network analytics and directed graph analysis. So hopefully you were with me last time when we constructed a directed graph, and today this is going to be a short session, shorter than last time. And we're going to dive into what we created and talk about clustering. So this is the restaurant influencers data that we loaded. The blue represents a customer, and they're rating these different restaurants. We have this simple data set, again, user, restaurant ID, restaurant name, the type of food, the individual rating, the total ratings for a customer, and whether they're an influencer or not. So that's the data that we created this graph with. So we're going to go into, well, before I do that, let's look. The data itself is naturally kind of grouping into clusters. So obviously this cluster is being formed naturally. This middle cluster is being formed naturally as well, and then this cluster. And so we could dive into those and look at the individual clusters, but we can also separate this into what's called communities for social network analytics. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to, in this operation panel on the left, I'm going to go to the clustering tab, and I'll just give it a name for reference, and linked clusters, and click run. And I'll leave this unchecked. So I'll click run. And then the job is now complete. So if I click yes, I'll be able to see the results of those clusters. And sure enough, here's what I get. So I can see by color the different clusters, and those colors match up with the panel on the right here. So I've assigned 265 this green color, and there are 24 actors, customers in this cluster. I can see here that I've got some smaller clusters of 11. I even have a cluster of 5. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 clusters. So quite a few. And then I can do all kinds of things with these results, and I can play around. So one of the things that I can do is I can go into this clustering tab, and I can look at the relationships settings, and I can say that the relationship setting is going to be the rating, the relationship class, and I'm going to run that. And once I do that, I actually change the number of the clusters, because now I've got these clusters and they're based upon weights. So now I've got 7 clusters here, and I can look at the weight relationships there. I can also, in the clusters, I can look at the recent results. So here are those clusters, and I can even download this information. So I can create a CSV file. I'll say the actor class is customer, and now I've got that, and I've got it in Excel, and I could certainly take that and analyze this data as I see fit. And again, here's the cluster that these customers are in, etc. All right. So that's pretty cool. I can also check, I can look at individual clusters. So if I want to filter this cluster out, I click on the filter, and boom, there I go. Again, I'm using the wheel to scroll here, and I can look at these individual customers or actors, and look at what they're doing and what the weight relationships are between those in the restaurants. Okay, you can see that this is actually this customer rated this particular restaurant 0. So if I want to reopen, I can just click on the entire network, and then I've got the original data back in. And then if I want to go back, I can look at the past results, and I can look at that. And if I click this open and refresh, I go right back. So it basically saved my work as I went through and created these different clusters. And then the last thing to note about these clusters is certainly the clusters themselves are interesting, but also the relationships between the clusters, the bridge relationship. And what do I mean by bridge relationships? So this is interesting right here. Look at this one customer right here. See how it's almost like they want a group within this cluster, but they ended up assigning here. So if I click on that individual, I can see here that there are 2 relationships with this one cluster, this cluster here, and it's actually a 5 and a 5. But it actually colors out this brown or whatever it is, because the relationships there are 6 and 5 for a total of 11 versus 5 and 5 for a total of 10. So you can look at these bridge relationships. They're interesting because they define a relationship between these 2 communities. So you might want to look at those. So these are ones on the fringes. So 6 and 4 is 10. So that's the assignment for this particular individual. So again, relationships, communities, and bridge actors or customers, those are interesting things to consider. And again, to keep it short, I'll stop there. Next time we'll be talking about scoring. I hope you can join me then. Thanks.